Welcome to Chapter 3 lecture, and we will be covering diverse learners and how to have an inclusive classroom. Diversity is an important part of the K-12 classroom, and this diversity can make our classroom environment much richer, especially if we work within the classroom to learn about these different diverse cultures and backgrounds and abilities, and then work to make different students feel included and welcome. Now, diversity can include a variety. It can include cultural, racial, ethnic, linguistic differences, also gender or learning differences, and then socioeconomic status differences. Remember that gender diversity, it can include gender role behaviors, sexual orientation, and gender identification. So keep this in mind that this goes beyond listing basically how many males and females that you have included in your class. Students with disabilities are included in the general classroom, and most receive about 80% of their education in the general ed classroom. IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, or IDEA, is a very important piece of legislation that changed how students with disabilities were educated. Until the late 80s, these students were not typically included in the mainstream classroom. But the LRE, or least restrictive environment, part of this law was finally put into place at that time in the late 80s. And you can see on page 50 to 51, table 3.3 in your text details various student characteristics. Here are some different disability categories. That's table 3.2. And then here's that table 3.3, which gives some different characteristics with different disabilities. And again, that's on pages 50 to 51 in the text. You may want to go back and review that a little closer to have an idea of where different characteristics can go with different categories. So here's some strategies listed that address diverse learners and gives you an idea of how the spectrum of diversity and where that lies in your classroom. Universal design for learning and differentiated instruction is important to implement in a classroom. This particular table gives you an idea of what those principles are. What does this look like in the classroom? How do we put this together? How do we implement this? And then there is the RTI model, or the response to intervention. So this is a 3-tier model, and goes from tier 1, which is very few accommodations or modifications, moving up to tier 3 for special education services. So we'd start at tier 1 to begin to intervene with our students. If that does not help the student improve or find a level of success, then we move up the tier, and until, if needed, we move into the tier 3 part of the model.